I didn't cry, but I came really close a couple of times. I just saw Superman, the movie, the new movie, not the old movie. And also not Superman like the actual person in real life, because he doesn't exist in real life, except in forms like this. So I guess I did just see Superman. Hi, Superman! I just saw Superman. But I just saw the new Superman movie that is out in theaters now, and this will be a spoiler-free review. So if you're watching this and you haven't seen the movie yet, and you're worried if I'm gonna wreck it for you, I won't. I'm not going to talk about plot specifics or anything like that. I am going to discuss sort of general themes and things that are in the movie, but I'm going to do that in a non-specific way. So I don't think you have anything to worry about if you haven't seen the movie yet. I am going to spoil one thing, though, and it's this. It's really, really good. It's really, really good. So I have said leading up to the release of this movie, I mean, for the last several years, like ever since we knew that this movie in this form was coming down the pike, I've always taken a tone of guarded optimism. And that's because you never know. No matter who the writer or director is, no matter who the stars are, no matter who the studio behind it is, no matter how great any of the artists and entities involved are, no matter how awesome their track records are, no matter how good they are at what they do, when it comes down to it, you just never know until you actually see the movie. And that's the wonderful thing about movies, and it's also sometimes the terrible thing about movies, because you go see a movie that you've allowed yourself to hope and believe would be great, and then you're sitting there watching it and you're going, oh, shit. So guarded optimism for that reason. But aside from that, I must confess to you, as soon as I heard that James Gunn was writing and directing this movie, I have never been seriously worried. I left that possibility open that it was going to be disappointing, because sometimes that happens. But once I knew that James Gunn was going to do this movie, I relaxed. And I thought, okay, anything is possible, but more likely than not, this is going to be good, if not great. And it's a cliche to say, oh, this movie, it was everything I hoped it would be and more. But this movie, it was everything I hoped it would be and more. We are very fortunate, we Superman fans, we superhero fans in general, but specifically, obviously, in this case, Superman fans, we are very, very fortunate that this was placed into the hands of James Gunn. And if this is indicative of what the DC Comics live action adaptations will be like in years to come, this DCU entity that, has been created to replace the failed DCEU, if this movie is an indication of what the rest of it's going to be like, then putting the whole universe in James Gunn's hands was the right move. But I can say definitively putting Superman in James Gunn's hands was the right move. And we can be grateful not just that James Gunn is a good director, because he's a really good director. I mean, he has impeccable timing, he has dramatic timing, he has unbelievable comic timing as a director, as a filmmaker. Obviously, his cast have great timing as well, but as a storyteller, as a filmmaker, as a presenter of these scenes and stories, he has amazing timing. He can stage an action scene like nobody's business, and it doesn't matter if that action scene is taking place on a set or a real-world location, or it's like 90% CGI, as I suspect several of the big extended action scenes in this movie were. It doesn't make a difference. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to shoot this stuff, whether he's shooting it with a real or a virtual camera. But the real gift and the real thing that we should all be thankful for with this movie is that James Gunn is a goddamn good writer. I think as good of a director as he has turned out to be, and like I said, he's a great director, he is an even better writer. And it's the writing of James Gunn, both in terms of his cleverness and his ability to structure things and to build things up and pay things off and to keep a bunch of different balls in the air at the same time, and also his humanity, his emotional intelligence, his heart, the fact that he clearly cares a great deal about these characters and about this story. He's just the perfect writer for this material. He said, leading up to this, and as he was starting to sort of develop the movie, he said one of the touchstones for his Superman movie was going to be All-Star Superman. And I've been thinking about All-Star Superman a lot lately because I knew this movie was coming up, and also because I just reread it recently and did a video about All-Star Superman, the comic book, the original, not the animated movie, which is okay. The animated All-Star Superman is fine, but it's not the masterpiece that All-Star Superman, the comics, are. But so I've had that in mind, and you really, really get that in the movie. Not in terms of plot. Like, there's nothing plot related from All-Star Superman at all. Like, it's not even a loose adaptation. They have nothing in common in terms of the story, but in terms of tone, in terms of color palette, in terms of the way the movie conceives of Superman, Superman himself isn't exactly like he is in All-Star Superman. He's a different guy. He's a different character. But the heart of it, the essence of it is the same. You really see the All-Star Superman influence on this Superman movie. And one of the big ways that you see it is in how just unashamedly goofy and silly this movie is. This is maybe the most Silver Age comic book movie I've ever seen. It's more Silver Age than the Christopher Reeve Superman movies, which were actually made in the final years of the Silver Age, right? Like, and were almost entirely drawn from like Silver Age comics and the Silver Age Superman, at least in terms of like concepts and tone, if not, plot. This movie, this new Superman movie, is Silver Age all the way down. It is gloriously goofy and fun and colorful and weird, and it is all of these things with a very huge amount of intelligence and self-awareness and no self-consciousness at all. There is not an ounce of embarrassment in this movie about any of this. It embraces Superman at his biggest and his goofiest and his silliest. There's something that James Gunn and his collaborators, including his amazing cast, which I'm going to get to in a second, there's something that James Gunn gets about Superman that a lot of people don't. And a lot of the people who have tackled Superman over the years haven't gotten, or at least haven't demonstrated that they get it. And it's this: Superman is incredibly beautiful and poetic and just heart-filling. And Superman is also just unbelievably dumb. I mean, as a concept. Like, Superman the person isn't dumb. He's actually quite bright. But Superman as an idea. And both of those truths can coexist. Superman can be just the most profound, beautiful, just life-affirming, heart-filling, comforting, inspiring thing that you have ever seen or read. And it can be the dumbest, goofiest, most ridiculous thing you've ever seen. And it can be both of those equally at the same time. And this movie shows that more than any other Superman movie ever has. I'm not prepared to say it's the best Superman movie ever, but it's damn close. And it is more representative of that side of Superman, of that simultaneous poetry and dumbness, silliness, than any other Superman movie has ever been. Like, it gets that Superman is, or can be at least, doesn't have to be, but can be the unity of those two seemingly diametrically opposed or mutually exclusive concepts. It really, really gets that in just a wonderful way. And James Gunn really just wrote the hell out of this movie. Everything in this movie demonstrates that it has been thought out, that it has been thought of, that it has been anticipated, that it has been crafted. Nothing here is left to chance. Nothing here is just thrown on screen. Nothing here is neglected. James Gunn, as a writer, as a storyteller, he knows that he's working with a cast of just an enormous cast of characters. One of the concerns going into the movie from a lot of people was, oh, gee, judging by the trailer, there's a lot going on in this movie. Like, is this going to be another, sort of like an Avengers Endgame situation where it's like, yeah, it's good, but there's just so much going on and it's so dense and so tightly packed? No, actually, it's not. Nothing. And again, I love the Avengers movies, but this is definitely not. This movie is just a shade over 2 hours long. It is not a 2.5, 3 hour biblical epic. It's a 2 hour superhero movie. Thank God. Yes, there are a ton of characters, but here's how James Gunn manages these characters and manages to have all of this going on at once, and all of these people in the movie, all of these recognizable faces, both in terms of actors and in terms of the characters they're playing, without having it feel overstuffed or like he's rushing or struggling to keep it all going. He knows the difference between focusing on a character, centering a character, and just giving a character enough time to make an impression. And he knows when to do which thing. There are some characters in the movie that we spend a lot of time with, that we really focus on, that the movie feels like it is centered around. Obviously, Superman is the big one. Also Lex, also Lois, to a bit of a lesser extent than Superman or Lex, but Lois is kind of right there, sort of as like a second lead, a secondary protagonist. And Mr. Terrific as well comes through really, really strongly here and has a lot to do in terms of plot and also, in terms of establishing who he is and contributing something through his personality to the film. And then most of the other characters, heroic and villainous, are there long enough to make an impression, to show us who they are, to have a little tiny bit of an arc, which is another brilliant thing that Gunn does. He was great at this with the Guardians of the Galaxy movies and with his version of Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, and also with the Creature Commandos animated series as well. He's really great at giving all the characters little stories, little arcs that set up something and get paid off later. Even if it's just an A to B thing, it's just set up punchline. Everybody gets something. Everybody gets a moment to shine. Everybody gets a moment to let us know who they are and why they're here and what they're contributing to the larger canvas. Even characters like Steve Lombard, Beck Bennett as Steve Lombard, one of the Daily Planet staff, who comic book readers will know and be familiar with because he's been a regular presence in the comics for decades. But if you're not like a Superman comic book reader, you might not recognize that name. He's not in the movie very much. He only has a handful of little beats scattered throughout the movie. But it's enough that we get a handle on him. It's like, oh, okay, I got it. I know that guy. And I know why he's here. And I know what he's contributing to this. Jimmy Olsen, again, has way more to do than Steve Lombard. Jimmy Olsen actually gets his own little subplot here. And he's fantastic. He's fantastic. He doesn't take over the movie, but he has his little thread that follows through that comes into play, that isn't just character stuff, that isn't just killing time so we can, have a couple of scenes with Jimmy Olsen for the sake of it. Like, it goes somewhere. It feeds into the larger story in a really, really clever way. Same thing with Lois. Although obviously her story is much more important, much larger than Jimmy's. And also the fact that Lois Lane is a journalist. It actually plays into the movie. Lois and Jimmy work together as journalists to break a story that has a lot of relevance to the plot. I won't say anything more than that, but that's part of the story. That's part of the movie. That wasn't neglected. That wasn't forgotten about. The fact that they're journalists isn't just, something for, the character card on the back of the action figure. It's not, that's how they were in the comics, so we'll make them journalists just so it's accurate. No, it feeds into the story. It's important. It matters. It informs who they are and what they do. And and I love when movies do this. I love when storytelling of any medium does this. There are setups and payoffs, and you don't even know it's been set up until you get to the payoff. That happens several times throughout the movie, where you'll get the payoff and then you'll realize, oh man, that was set up earlier, and I saw it, and I didn't even realize it was a setup. That happens a couple of times toward the end of the movie that is just, oh my God, so satisfying. So satisfying just in terms of cleverness and also just on an emotional level. Just, oh, man, did he get me with that one. David Corenswet as Superman and Clark. You don't see a whole lot of Clark in this. I don't want to, again, I'm not going to spoil plot stuff. Clark Kent is not in the movie a whole bunch. He's mostly Superman. I'm okay with that. We get enough of his Clark that, again, we get a sense of what his Clark is like and how he is as Clark. But he's mostly Superman. He's amazing. He's fantastic. He manages to do something that is very impressive given how many times the character has been played and by how many different people he has been played. He finds notes to play as Superman that have never been played before by a live action actor. He finds a way to play Superman that registers immediately. You see him and you're like, that's Superman. He's wonderful and he's warm and he's human and he's funny. He's so effortlessly funny. My God, is he funny in this movie. Rachel Brosnahan as Lois. I thought as soon as I saw that they had cast Rachel Brosnahan, who I've been a fan of since she was in House of Cards, and of course she was the marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and she was just fantastic in that. As soon as I saw that they had cast Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, I thought, obviously, she was born to play Lois Lane, and now she's playing Lois Lane, and she proves it. Yes, she was born to play Lois Lane. She's phenomenal. And like I said, she gets to play a smart Lois who has opinions about things, who has a point of view that is on Superman's side, but isn't always in lockstep with Superman. Her relationship with Superman has a lot of tension and a lot of friction, but they're also clearly on the same team. And like I said earlier, she gets to be a journalist. She gets to be a journalist in a way that is relevant to the story. And then the other member of the big three in the movie, and the only other actor I'll shout out by name, although again, everybody is great. Everybody is great. Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor, who may be the best on-screen Lex Luthor I've ever seen. Because he plays Lex, and again, this also comes from Gunn's script and direction as well, but I mean, Nicholas Hoult brought this guy to life and brought this take of the character to the screen. He plays Lex in a way where he is compelling and you want to watch him and you are fascinated by him and intrigued by him. And there are moments in the movie that have to do with Lex that are funny, but Lex himself, not funny. Lex himself, not likable. Lex himself, probably the most loathsome and hateable Lex, in a good way, in an entertaining way, in a way that makes you want to watch the movie. But just an absolutely despicable Lex Luthor. I mean, just evil, but also like pitiful, you know? Just an extraordinary performance and an extraordinary characterization of Lex, where you just, oh God, you're dying to see Superman beat this guy. You're dying to see this guy lose. You are rooting against Lex all the way. He's not charming and likable like Gene Hackman was. Gene Hackman playing Lex in Superman, yeah, he's the bad guy. Yeah, you know he's the villain. You want Superman to, to come out on top. But it's Gene Hackman and he's charming and he's throwing out jokes and quips and yeah, he's the bad guy, but you like him. There's nothing personal between you and Gene Hackman's Lex. Like, he's great. He's just playing his role in the movie. This Lex, Nicholas Holt's Lex, massive piece of shit. Massive piece of shit. Like, you just want, Superman's not going to do it because he's Superman and he would never do this, but you just want Superman to just strangle him until his fucking head pops off. He's just the worst. In the best way. One of the terms that I really, really hate that has become overused to the extreme, especially in this age of, the MCU and massive multimedia crossovers, is world building. God, I'm sick of world building. The world building done by this movie, in my opinion, is exactly the way it should be done. There's a ton of world building in this movie. But what it is, before it's world building, it's storytelling. This movie sets up so much stuff, but it doesn't set up anything. I'll tell you what I mean. There's no Avengers Initiative scene in the movie, right? There are some post-credit scenes. I'll tell you that much in case you're wondering. You probably assumed that there were, because there always are in movies like this. There are 2 post-credit scenes. They are both lovely, at one point funny, charming postscripts to this movie. They're not to set up a sequel. They're not to set up a spin-off. They're not to set up the Supergirl movie or the next season of Peacemaker or some other, upcoming DCU project. They're there as just a little bit of icing on the cake of this movie. But even though there's nothing obvious like that, and not just in the post-credit scenes, but elsewhere in the movie as well, nothing feels like it's setting something up for the next thing, which again, what a wonderful gift in the current environment where these kinds of movies feel like they're always serving 2 masters. They're always trying to, tell the story they're trying to tell, but also got to set up the next 5 things. This movie doesn't feel like it's ever doing that. And yet it is doing that constantly from the beginning to the end. You saw a bunch of the characters in the trailers. You know that Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, is in here. You know that Hawkgirl is in here. You know that Mr. Terrific is in here, right? But they're just there. They're just a part of this movie. They're just a part of the story. It is done with such confidence and so casually. There's no origin story. There's no origin story for Superman. The circumstances of his origin are mentioned here and there, but there's no depiction of it. There's no origin story for Superman. There's no origin story for Green Lantern or Hawkgirl or Mr. Terrific or Lex or any of these people. They exist. They've been here for a while, and we are just entering this world at this point. And it works beautifully. And the setups consist of, oh, by the way, this character exists. Oh, look, there he is. There she is. They're just here, just to let you know they're here. And, there are a couple characters that kind of pop in very briefly, and it's always played as there's always a little bit of a joke. It's not just somebody popping up on a TV going, "Hi, it's me." Like there's a little bit of a joke, there's a little bit of a gag, there's something to justify them being here other than, oh, by the way, here's so-and-so for later, right? So just fabulous job on that. Even the opening titles, like there's an opening on-screen title that just kind of sets the table, like kind of like a Star Wars opening crawl, but it's not crawling. It's 4 succinct, beautifully crafted sentences that just fill us in on kind of where we're at in this world, how long people have known about superheroes, how long Superman has been here, what happened immediately leading up to the events of this movie. 4 sentences. And even that is structured. Even that has a form that it follows so that it feels composed. It feels crafted. It's not just flat information of, okay, so this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then what else do you need to know? This happened too. Okay, go for it. It's crafted. It's just, like I said, he wrote the hell out of this movie. He wrote the hell out of this movie. There's a game that I play sometimes with movies where I try to spot the scene in the movie that should have been the first scene. Because in screenwriting class, we are taught, one of the first things I'm not just in screenwriting class, in any creative writing class, you're taught, start your story at the latest possible point. Don't show the audience any more of a lead up or a build up than you have to. And with this movie, with Superman, I don't have to play that game because this movie's first scene is exactly what the first scene should be. And it establishes the stakes to a certain extent. It establishes a few of the things that make this Superman and the world of this Superman different from others that we've seen before. It establishes Krypto, who I haven't mentioned in the review yet, but is another of the very, very best things about this movie. I love Krypto. I love that Krypto gets an arc. Krypto gets a couple of little character arcs, actually. There are a couple of things that are set up with Krypto that are then paid off later on. He's great. He is such a great part of the movie. He brings it such a great chaotic energy. I love that he's a poorly trained dog. Like, it's not just, oh, here's Crypto, the dog with a cape. He has a character. He's a specific person. And part of what he is and part of what makes him such a delight in the movie is he's just a really badly behaved dog. And it's like, what do you do with a super dog who's indestructible and can fly and is just rambunctious and completely misbehaving and doesn't listen to anything you tell him to do? Like, what do you do with that dog? Like, how do you deal with that? How do you handle that? And that's kind of a joke throughout the movie. And it's just, I'm just gushing at this point. The whole thing is fabulous. The cast is amazing. The look of it is amazing. The music is amazing, both the score and the soundtrack. It's a James Gunn movie, so you know there are some amazing deep cut needle drop moments in this. There are some fantastic action scenes involving Superman and also not involving Superman. There are some incredibly funny scenes. It's funny, it's weird, it's silly, it's heartfelt, it's human. It understands Superman. It understands who Superman is. It understands why Superman is who he is. And I have often said that movies, art in general, popular art especially, but movies are our way of telling ourselves who we are. And Superman is definitely that. In a lot of ways that hopefully you'll get if you watch the movie, but Superman is also telling us who we could be. And that's Superman in general as a character and Superman in this movie and this Superman movie specifically. Telling ourselves who we could be, who we should be trying to be, and why. And that's important. And it's a movie that I know a lot of people have felt like they need right now. Because in the opinion of quite a few of us, things aren't going so well. And we need not just a pick-me-up and not just an escape and not just something to make us laugh and make us feel good for a couple of hours, but something to remind us of why we want things to be better in the first place, of what we're fighting for, of what we're hoping for, right? Superman symbolizes hope in a lot of ways. In certain Superman stories, like, he literally symbolizes hope. And this movie reminds us, what is it we're hoping for? Why are we hoping? Why are we holding out for something better? Why are we trying to make something better happen in the world? And this movie reminds us of what that is and of why we're doing that in a really wonderful way. If you liked the Christopher Reeve Superman, I think you're going to like this one. If you liked Superman the Animated Series and the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited Superman that I know a lot of folks really, really took to and gravitated toward, I think you're going to like this. If you liked Lois and Clark and Smallville and Superman and Lois and My Adventures with Superman, which is another just fantastic recent variation, I think you're going to like this one a lot. If you liked Man of Steel even, which is not my favorite version, if you liked Man of Steel, but you are not like a cultist of it, you're not like a disciple of it, you're open to another version, another vision, another tone, I think you're going to like this too. I won't say it's a Superman for all people or a Superman for all seasons, although there's a little bit of that sprinkled in here too. But it's the Superman that I think we were all, or that we were mostly hoping it would be, and the Superman that I think, in a way, a lot of us needed. So, if you haven't seen it yet, if I were you, I would go see it as soon as you can. And I think I'm going to try to go see it again as soon as I can, because if I could describe it just in one word, it's super.